Hi, I'm Jane from Poppy Patchwork, and in today's video I'm going to show you how to make a block I've called Laura's block. Laura contacted me via Instagram and asked me if I knew what this block was called. Unfortunately I didn't, but I did ask her if I could make a video of the block and she agreed. So this block I've called Laura's block. We're launching a tailored paid subscription designed to make your quilting experience even better. Sign up now by clicking the link below. So we're going to start by making the 4 patches which go in the corner with the fabrics A and B. And the 4 patches are going to look like this in each corner. So I'm going to match a red and a cream together, and then I'm going to match 2 creams together. And then I'll take them over to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. So I'm now going to set the seams and I'm going to press towards the dark fabric, or in the case of the same fabrics I'm just going to press to one side. So now I'm going to sew these two patches together, and the seams should be pressed in opposite directions, and that will help you butt the seams together to match them, sometimes known as nesting the seams. So I'm going to do that to make 4 patches. I'm going to take them back over to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. I'm now going to set the seam and press the seams towards the darker fabric. And then I'm going to set these to one side. So on the back of fabrics E and F, I'm going to draw a diagonal line from corner to corner. And then using fabrics C and D, I'm going to place the opposite colours on top. So the reds are going to go on top of the creams, and the creams are going to go on top of the reds. So I'm going to take 2 of those squares and then put them in opposite corners, and then I'm going to line that diagonal line across. And I'm going to pin it in place. And then I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and sew a 1/4 inch away on both sides of that drawn line. So I'm going to repeat with the other colours, so that's the cream on top of the reds. So I'm now going to remove the pins and then cut along the drawn line. Then I'm going to set the seam and press towards the small triangles. And now I'm going to place a square in this other corner, and again it will be the opposite colour, and the diagonal line is going to run from here down to here. So I'm going to pin that in place. And again, when I go to the sewing machine, I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch away from that line on both sides of the line. So I'm going to remove the pins and then I'm going to cut through that drawn line. And now I'm going to set the seam and press towards the triangle piece. And now, using my Ultimate Flying Geese trimming tool, I'm going to trim these flying geese to the required size. So using the markings on the ruler, I'm lining the point of the flying geese here and the lines along here, and then I'm going to trim down one side and along the top. And I'm going to rotate the piece and the ruler, and again lining the point of the flying geese with the lines on the ruler, I'm going to trim down one side and along the top. So I'm going to do that trimming for all those pieces. Now if you do not have this Ultimate Flying Geese tool to trim your flying geese, you can right mouse click on the link above and it will take you to my video on how to trim flying geese with a standard ruler. So once trimmed, these flying geese now need to be joined together to make chevrons. And the chevrons are going to look like this. So I'm going to place these together, pop a pin in it and take it over to the sewing machine. Now when I sew it at the sewing machine, I want to have this side showing up so I can see where that point is. So when I'm sewing, I can make sure I get the perfect point there. So I'm going to set the seam and then I'm going to press away from the point, this point here, and towards this point here. So effectively I'm pressing towards the dark fabric. Now before I put these into block layout, I'm just going to trim my 4 patches. So I've laid it out in block layout, and fabric G is there in the middle, and I'm going to start by joining these pairs together, working in columns as I go. So here I'm able to butt the seam together at this point, and when I sew it, I'll sew 1/4 inch, and that should make sure that the point is not blunted. So on this occasion the seams are not going in opposite directions, so I'm just going to flip that seam so that they are in opposite directions, and then I can nest the seams together. So I'm going to take these over to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. So I've returned these to block layout. I'm not going to press the seams yet. I'm now going to complete the columns. So I'm going to go back to the sewing machine and sew with a 1/4 inch seam. So I've returned these to the block layout. I'm going to press these seams here towards this centre piece, and so these seams are going to be pressed towards the 4 patches. That means that the seams will be in opposite directions, which will help when you're nesting them together. So I'm going to begin by setting the seam and then pressing, on this occasion, towards the 4 patch. So returning everything back to the block layout. I'm now going to attach this column to the centre column and then attach this column to the centre column to complete the block. So this time these seams have been pressed in opposite directions and they should match. And so what we've got here are 2 points that need to be matched. So if you right click the link above, it'll take you to my video about perfect positioning. I'm just going to do that here. Although they are pressed to one side, the seams are pressed to one side, it's also important to get that perfect position for the points as well. So here the seams are both going in the same direction, so I'm going to flip the seam that's on the 4 patch because I can easily press that in the right direction. And again, we've got a point here underneath this. If we sew a good 1/4 of an inch, then you should be fine with matching that point. Sometimes if you can't find the point on one piece, if you flip it over, you'll be able to match them easier. So I'm going to sew this together, and then I'm going to sew the other column together and give it a good press. I hope you've enjoyed these videos, and thank you very much for all your support by downloading my patterns and buying my books. Bye for now and happy quilting!